Hey guys, the Inspiration Manifestation review about halfway done now. Going to be pretty busy over the next few days, so Thursday, Friday, I'm not sure, but yeah, certainly Friday I would say at the absolute latest. But anyway, I want to talk about putting your hoof down today, because there's been a few reviews out there just over the last month or so of people discussing it and talking about it, and it seems, generally speaking, to be regarded as a pretty poor episode, and some people, in fact, even regard it as the worst episode of the entire series, or certainly up there. And to be honest, I'm kind of indifferent towards it, or I was kind of indifferent towards it. I never really gave it a huge amount of thought one way or the other. I think overall I kind of, for the most part, mostly liked it. I thought for a while maybe it was just the fact that it was a Fluttershy episode. You know, that character just doesn't really resonate with me in any kind of major way. But then I think some of Fluttershy's episodes actually are up there as some of my personal favourites of the entire series: Hurricane Fluttershy, Philly Vanilli, Dragonshy. So maybe it's just that it isn't really maybe a lesson in this episode really that I relate to in any kind of major way. Probably isn't true either, actually, because I think that to myself I actually do sometimes act like the way Fluttershy does in a lot of those situations. So, I don't know, this episode should resonate with me, and I should have some kind of extreme feeling one way or the other, but for some reason, I just don't. I'm not going to try and address any specific criticisms of this episode directly. I'm just going to say that I have recently rewatched it, and yeah, I can see why a lot of people don't like this episode, because there's something about the structure to the narrative of this episode that is kind of off-putting. It's a lot of very sort of dragging through something that's quite obvious for longer than we really need to, and then suddenly things change. It's like Fluttershy's getting pushed around by the townspeople, just dwell on that for a little bit. Suddenly she changes, and suddenly she's more assertive. And then Fluttershy's being assertive and pushing people around, and then suddenly it's too much. There's just a sudden change there, and she's pushing around people too much, and there's a lot of that. And then suddenly, you know, she goes into her shell, and you know, she's boarded up her house and everything. It's sort of just telling us something that's quite obvious, really, from the beginning, and then suddenly they completely change the situation, like in a second, basically. You know, it is almost literally like instantaneous, a sort of change. It's no sort of gradual progression from one thing into the next. It's instant changes in Fluttershy, which I guess is kind of consistent with her personality, because, you know, she is kind of a difficult kind of character to figure out with her, you know, persona. She does go through these sudden changes. You know, we see that in Dragonshy quite distinctly. You know, first Fluttershy episode makes it quite obvious that that is the type of character that she is. You know, she makes these kind of sudden changes, but I don't know, it never really sort of dwelled into sort of Fluttershy turning into a horrible person or pony in the way that it does in this episode. And the other thing that bugs me, actually I will address one criticism people have been making. A lot of people criticise Angel's slap in the pre-title scene on Fluttershy's face. It didn't really bother me too much, because, you know, it's like a fraction of a second and it's over. But watching it back, it does seem kind of unnecessary. You know, you have Angel swiping the lettuce leaf away, then the slap, and then shoving the book in her face. Really, you don't need the slap. You can just have him swiping the lettuce leaf away and then shoving the book in her face. You don't really need the slap. So, yeah, I can see people's problem with that. It doesn't really bother me personally, but I would say that it's kind of pointless. Rarity and Pinkie Pie were absolutely outstanding in this episode. I think it's one of the best performances by Pinkie Pie I've seen in quite a while, actually. I think that's well, I'd say quite a while. This is quite an old episode, but yeah. I didn't really like the way they repeated the Bugs Bunny joke. Really, it seemed kind of unnecessary. You know, it's the same joke. Nothing's really changed about it. It's not done in any kind of sort of different kind of way where there's a clever twist to it or anything. It's just done again. So yeah, I didn't like the second time they did that. I would also say that the way that Fluttershy suddenly starts taking things too far and pushing people around, they seem to be sort of saying in the episode, Rarity and Pinkie Pie seem to be making out that this is Iron Will's doing. This is something he's told her to do. I don't recall him ever saying things like that. I think, with those ponies on the bridge, for example, what she does there is exactly the right idea of what Iron Will's been telling her to do. Say, excuse me, say, can you please get out of my way? Be a bit more aggressive the second time, and then say, can I'm sorry, but you really need to get out of my way. And then if they still ignore you, then you take more evasive kind of action. Actually, another thing people sort of criticise is they ask, why can't Fluttershy just fly over the top? It's not really the point, though. It's more about the principle of, Fluttershy's asked them to get out of the way, and they haven't. So, she needs to sort of, make it clear that, this isn't acceptable. They should get out of her way if she asks them to. So flying over the top would be, ignoring the problem, ignoring the real issue, kind of. So yeah, the pacing of and Fluttershy's changes are kind of off-putting. I really don't like the way the townspeople are acting in this episode. It's like people have maybe suggested that, maybe these are just specific people in the town of Ponyville that just happens to be jerks, and what Fluttershy's just on one particular day comes across all the jerks, just by coincidence. It seems a bit far-fetched to me. And yeah, I think that's about it, really, for what I have to say about it. Minor point kind of bugged me. How did Fluttershy board up the windows to her house from the inside? It's just a minor thing that kind of bugs me. That's basically it, really. It's not really kind of a lesson that really kind of resonates with me in any kind of way. Fluttershy doesn't really connect with me in any kind of major way in this episode. She is most definitely my least favourite of the main six. Not that she's a particularly bad character, she's just my least favourite. So in that sense, maybe it just isn't for me, I would say. But yeah, there are a lot of things about the structure of this episode and the way that Fluttershy is acting, and certainly the way the townspeople are acting, that do kind of bug me. So I can kind of see why people wouldn't like this episode, but, worst episode of the entire series, like some people seem to be saying, no, I can't see that at all. But at the same time, other people saying that this is one of the best episodes of the series, no, I can't see that either. So yeah, just not an episode that really resonated with me in any kind of major way, but interesting to look back and understand why other people either like or don't like it. But yeah, that's that, guys. I'll see you soon for a proper review later this week.